Good morning, YouTubers. How are you? I hope you're all doing fine and well. It's Y2K today on the 9th of September, 7:26 a.m. Wednesday morning, and you're catching me while I'm headed off to work. And I just wanted to share with you a very interesting Singaporean terminology called Kiasu. Now, how do we pronounce this? So, if you know the car brand that's called Kia, so you pronounce the word Kia and then sue, as in like the name Sue, sue, or the action to sue someone. So you say the word together, Kia and sue, Kiasu. So what does Kiasu actually means by nature? It means the fear of losing out. All right. So this you normally find this terminology taking place locally in Singaporean and Malaysian cultural contexts, where people actually conduct themselves. You could say, in a way, the attitudes they conduct themselves, where they're concerned that they would be second or they will be third. So they don't want to be second or third; they want to be first. So why why this discussion about this interesting terminology? For those of you who travel to Singapore, and if you um, uh, go to, for example, if you go to like a hawker center or food court, which is some place, it can be under a public housing called the HDB, which you will find a coffee shop downstairs. There'll be these tables, and there's stalls, little stalls that sell food. They can have various kinds of cuisines. You can have Indian food, local Indian food, um, local Chinese food, and local Muslim food. And so, obviously, when you are there and you notice that there'll be sometimes on these empty tables during lunchtime, so you find these packets of tissues, water bottles, umbrellas. So, the example how Kiasu fits into here is when people are trying to hold the table and they want to signify and show that this table is theirs. Don't you come and get it from me. So, yes, the fear of losing out, because their fear of losing out the chance to have a table to sit down, they, they book the tables with tissue paper packets, um, water bottles, and umbrellas. So, for those of you who are visiting, you might find that very peculiar, but it is the way of how things are that people, the locals here especially, or Singaporeans in general, would hold the table and actually say that to tell you that this table is actually theirs and they came here first. Now, in education context, um, the school system and perhaps I used to work in the Singapore school system. I went through the Singapore school system, so from the beginning, I was in the primary school system in the 90s, and back then in the 90s, the parents would always be trying to get their kids to go for tuition classes, go for violin classes, piano classes, many different types of classes. So all of these classes was because the fear of losing out, that there's always this competitive edge here, that parents felt that it's necessary for my kids to actually know piano, to know how to play the violin, to be smarter than other kids, and the whole concept that you have to be number one, you have to be the best, you have to know everything, has been imbued into the education, the upbringing, and the nurturing of the children in Singapore. So even when you're growing up, obviously, if your parents, now this wasn't just isolated to just one particular racial group in Singapore, because in Singapore you have the largest population, which is Singaporean Chinese. Then you have the second largest group, the Singaporean Malay. They are mostly made up of Muslims. And you have the third largest group, which is Singaporean Indians. And then the fourth group would be Eurasians, which is a mix of Europeans and Asians, and perhaps other mixtures of different racial groups as well. So if you were raised, or if you were born into Singapore, or in a family in Singapore where they practice this Kiasu-ism, there is actually a concept, or we could call it a school of thought called Kiasu-ism. That means that when you go to school, your parents would have told you how important it is to be the best. You can't be second, you can't be third, you have to be number one. And I got most of that when I was in primary school. My observations, even the parents themselves, they would come to school and they would be driving their big Mercedes S-classes, or their big Jaguar XJs and BMWs, BMW 7 Series. So they would come to school and they would, show off all their big German cars. Yeah. And then when the kids get off, they tend to show that they've got very nice, shiny shoes, school bags. They were from Deuter, which is a German brand. Or I think there was another bag brand called something Pack. Is it East Pack or something? Yeah. Now you have the brands called Herschel, as well as I think there's another one. I can't remember what the brand is called. Yeah, is it Duffler or something? Yeah, so one of those very, very fancy schmancy bags. So Kiasu-ism, let's focus back on it. So in the school context, we talk about the school context. That kids will always want to be scoring number one. And so you might ask me, in the education context, what's a negative aspect about it? A negative aspect about it is that you would have this subconscious pressure on children where they feel the need to conform to their parents' wishes and to also be showing to their classmates that they are the best. So there's always this extra baggage that hovers around their head, that they have to constantly be number one. They cannot fall short. Now, you can say there are caveats to this kind of attitude. Is it good? Is it bad? I will leave that to you to figure out. But at the same time, I would also ask you to think about things logically if you were a primary 1 to primary 6 school kid. I know there are different ways of the grade system for education in other countries. You may have grade 1 to 13 in North America. In Singapore, they follow the Cambridge system, which is the UK system of studying. So they have the Cambridge GCE, O-level exams, and the lesser exam called the N-levels. For students who need to clear the N-levels, then they go to the O-levels. Yeah, so in terms of education, this is what it is, Kids will focus on trying to be number one, to impress their parents, so that parents can show off to other parents that the kids are the smartest. Nothing wrong with that. Let me just clarify that. Nothing absolutely wrong with that. But there is this added stress on top of it, which at some point I'll get to then, probably by the end of the video. So next, in the workplace, let's think about it. You're growing up from primary school to secondary school. You were focusing on your studies and everything, being number one. Then you move on to college, you go to polytechnic, and you also carry that mindset you need to be number one. You cannot fall short. So by the time you enter into the workplace, interestingly enough, you can be carrying Kiasu around. You can be carrying this Kiasu-ism around and try to simply perform like you've never performed before, Come to the office early, for example, and then maybe you might even say, I'm going to have the cleanest desk possible. My reports will be in the most crisp and everything. As I'm in the working field now, everything that we once learned about being number one in primary school, and we we think about, oh, let's bring it forward, let's take it to the next level at work. The truth is, now this might happen across everywhere in the world, obviously. The Kiasu-ism concept doesn't really stick on anymore, but it's added an extra, extra layer whereby you would call it the bootlicking. So if we add the Kiasu-ism, the concept of Kiasu-ism to the bootlicking, it means that the people are adding more bootlicking to their bosses to get promotions. Now, I'm a person who prefers to be focusing more on my merits, even though they say that Singapore functions on meritocracy. But the truth is, when you dig down the layers, you peel back the layers, that meritocracy is actually as good as non-existent these days. Because what I've learned is when you work your damn best, you do everything you can, you be as professional as you can be as sharp, wise, with experience. The truth is, the Kiasu-ism thrives on in people. And obviously, I must say that Singaporeans and probably the practitioners of this concept are very proud about it. Hats off to you if you like the concept, if you like to constantly be living on edge, like 150% energy, pumping out like a lot of energy. But personally, I would say it's not very healthy in the long run, because you're constantly thinking that you always have to be number one, you always have to be, you always have to be the best. So it builds these negative feelings of what? Jealousy is one. Other people are performing better than you, faster than you, being first, you build jealousy. Two, it builds a lot of insecurity. Plenty of insecurity, not just across children in school, but parents, and then adults in the workplace, and even retirees. Now, I used to take care of my late grandfather. I took care of my late father, and I got to hang out with some elderly people. And even when I do walk past elderly people in the coffee shops here, the conversations and sometimes the way that they treat each other, for example, the men, okay, the older men, you notice that they're all wearing Rolexes all the time, and they'll be what we call the Uncle Rolex. Now, for the watch lovers, they'll be wearing their Oyster Perpetuals, okay, the Rolex Oyster Perpetuals. It can be two-tone, it can be maybe full silver, but most people would like a two-tone or a full gold. And why is that so? It's purely mainly a flex thing. Yeah. I just want to show that they have the money to do so. Yeah. But as we're progressing in the concept of Kiasu-ism, we talked about education, we talked about the workplace. Of course, it affects the promotions too. People who are more, in tune to be Kiasu will believe that they need to go over and beyond the workplace. Go over and beyond in the bootlicking just so they can get promotions and all this. Well, that's how it is. I mean, in certain parts of the world too, that I guess as some of us, we believe that every morning we wake up, we do our best, and this line actually came from Judi Dench in the film called The Best Marigold Hotel. We wake up in the morning and we believe we do our best. Yeah. But overall, now that we progress on to talk about retirement, yes. So from education, we go to the adulthood, about work in the workplace, and now we're going to talk about retirement. So obviously, the Kiasu attitude when you're working until your 50s and 60s, maybe some into your 70s, okay, and now you're talking about retirement. You will still carry the Kiasu-ism if you follow the concept very, very religiously. What happens is that obviously there is a feeling that when you get old, when any of us get old, we're no longer as fast as we were before. We're no longer as quick as we were before. We're not sharp anymore. Now, I'm not discriminating. I'm also saying that at some point, I will get to that point where I find that I'm no longer as sharp as I used to be anymore. I'm not like, pumped up, amped up all the time. Now, just for FYI, I don't think it's a very healthy way to be constantly amped up all the time. It'd be like drinking Red Bull all the time, thinking you're high on edge, which I don't know about you guys, but I don't think it's very healthy. Too much sugar and taurine and stuff like that. You don't believe it, just drink it. I mean, it's your health, not mine. I would follow the concept that it's fair game. What you choose to eat, is fair game. What you choose to put in your mouth is fair game to your health. So we talk about retirement. So in retirement, even retirees here would talk about the money that they have left over, their assets, such as their houses, their cars, even their luxury goods like watches, bags, and bonds and stocks. Yeah, so even in the retirement, people here do think about constantly, feeling the need to feel that they need to show off. And of course, now that you're in those grey golden years, you've been practicing Kiasu-ism for a long time. You're already thinking, you know what, I still need to show for something. I need to have something to show for. I need to show my friends in the coffee shop, that I'm still someone, still somebody. It's all right. It's not a sin. It's not a crime. But I think that happiness. Okay, let's talk about happiness. You can have a lot of happiness in many forms, but the truth that if you constantly feel the need to be number one all the time, to showcase that you're the best all the time, it can only go so far before you stress yourself out to constantly be number one. And as we get to the end of it, I did promise you guys to talk about something about the education aspect, about the negative aspect about Kiasu-ism. So kids do get stressed, parents do get stressed because you're constantly trying to be number one. You want your kids to be number one. But if your kids aren't number one and they're trying their best, you might find they're not trying hard enough. So you push them harder, give them more tuition, give them more classes, give them more this. And if I've heard it before, because I used to work as a student care teacher, I've actually asked a student to show me their schedule. And while we are on subject of Kiasu-ism, I have one good example to share with all of you, is that I had a student once tell me this, Y2K, can you help me find my childhood? Now think about it as an adult, I'll give you a moment to think about that question. Can you help me find my childhood? Well, how do we define childhood? What is childhood to you? All of us have different experiences in our childhood. They can be good, they can be bad, they can be miserable. But there were pleasant moments, there were good moments, and there were memorable moments. The truth is that when I looked at this child's schedule, because I was thinking, so I spoke to the kid and I said, why do you think your childhood is missing? Because you're asking me to help you find your childhood. So where's your childhood? So I don't have time for it. You don't have time for it. So actually, what I did was I looked at his schedule, and the schedule is just full of activities. There wasn't a slot of time called fun. When I say fun, it's not the parents telling the kid, oh, I think that, playing this particular sport, I think that playing this sport, for example, is fun. To the parent, it may be fun, but to the kid, it may not be. If, for example, if the kids like to play badminton, but instead the parent says, I want you to play pickleball or basketball because all the kids are playing basketball, you can have the kid learn a basketball class, but the kid's not having fun. And part of the importance of childhood is to have genuine fun, where the kid actually builds their own memories. Because if you think about it, Once you go into elementary school, high school, or middle school, you're going to college, or and university, and then into workplace. Along the entire journey, you need to find little spots where you can have fun. You find meaning in it. So, what I actually asked this kid was, does any of these activities in this whole schedule for a day or a week, do you find exciting? Do you like piano? Do you like, what's this, Kumon? Kumon is apparently like a tuition, by the way. It's a tuition center. They teach a lot of, I think they teach a lot about mathematics as well. So I asked, do you like all these activities? And he said no. So at some point I said to the kid, well, you need to tell your parent that you're not having a lot of interest in these. Do you find them beneficial to you? Do you find them helping you? And the kid was so disinterested in all these activities, and he was building up this frustration, because he felt that his interests were not being met. Now, obviously, to be fair to the parents will say, oh, but, I prefer my kid to have all these skills. Yes, I think skill building is important. However, the skill building should also inculcate the ideology of fun and something that is meaningful to the children. So when they find that they are looking towards something to remember the childhood by, there are meaningful moments. And when the kids enjoy the activities, they build their social skills too. If I was to make you go for an activity that you don't like, would you choose to socialize in an event or not? Or the activity? You wouldn't, because you just want to get out. But if you like the event and you like the activity, you would be more, willing, I use the word willing, to stay behind, chat with friends, network, make some contacts, because the activity is fun. And the thing about Kiasu-ism is the really negative aspect of it is that people think that it's good, it's healthy. Oh, it's the Singaporean culture. Nothing wrong with it. The only issue is that it only becomes wrong when you impose it on someone. And then you believe that is the only way how life should be, because in life you have to be number one, because if you don't, you will lose out. Now, to be fair, while I understand that Singaporean viewers might say, well, we view it this way, that Kiasu-ism is important because on a geographical aspect, on geography, Singapore doesn't have a lot of resources, it's small, we don't have, abundance of agriculture, we don't have natural resources, so we have to be number one all the time. If we're not number one, we're not where we are. I didn't say that it was wrong. But in the long run, you will notice, that you have more people in this day and age, after the post-pandemic. Do people step out and say they've got mental health issues, mental wellness is not being upkept? People are just constantly trying to upkeep themselves, but they don't have the opportunity, because all of these opportunities of mental wellness is just simply being tossed out, because being number one is more important than mental wellness, right? Income, KPIs. See, but as we're drawing to a close of this simple video, while I'm talking to you guys about Kiasu, is you use it sparingly. Don't. While it's all right to be the best of a game, you don't always have to be the top of your game, because being top of a game is tiring. And what happens if you don't receive appreciation for it? In the workplace, for example, you work your hardest, you work your most sincerest, your appraisals don't get the coverage, you don't get the recognition. You get some town hall meetings in the office, people get appreciation, and you don't get any appreciation, and you get upset and jealous. Now, Y2K would like to share some words of wisdom with you guys. All right, it's not negative. It's not a concept about, oh, it's half the glass is half full, half empty. That is a matter of perspective, and that is relative. That is what I need to tell you guys. But think about this simple little quote I share with you guys. All right, no expectations, no disappointments. Why would I say there'll be no disappointments? The moment you have any kind of expectations, let's say you have expectation on a restaurant that someone or Google reviews are saying that was the best, okay? The best Chinese food, the best Indian food, the best Mediterranean or the best halal food, okay? Or the best Japanese food. The moment you go there and you sample the food and it's not up to your standards, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? You pay maybe $30 for a buffet, and then you don't get your money's worth, or the food quality sucks, and it's just bad all around. How are you going to feel about it? You're going to be upset. You're going to be disappointed. This applies for people too. This applies for even when I was a student, I used to also think about that. Oh, I've done my best, I aced that Mandarin exam. I took that Mandarin exam. I wrote my essay well and everything. But let's not forget that the people grading the paper are also people. I know in this day and age of 2025, we have AI and all those things, but we'll talk about AI in a different video, but not this one. But people are people. They have opinions, they have perspectives, they have biasness, So the truth is that what I've seen so far, best to fall the side of on the error of caution, and don't have too much expectations. They will disappoint you most of the time. I'm not just saying results, people, especially, be in a workplace, friends, is unexpected. I mean, the thing is that we can't stop people from, having actions or doing the way they do. The truth is that we all are stuck and bound to it. Anyways, I hope this simple little video today shares a bit about Kiasu-ism. So if you come to visit Singapore, you see people booking tables, or the word choping, CHOPEING. Cope, not it's LOHE. It's called choping, CHOPING. Sounds like chopping, eh? Choping and holding a table with tissue papers or water bottles and umbrellas. That you can only find that most likely in Singapore, and a lot of tourists do say that when they go to other countries sometimes and they see that, and they've been to Singapore and they see the same thing overseas, people are actually scratching their heads wondering what's happening. Yeah, you can put your bags there, you can put your shopping bags in, hopefully no one steals it. Yeah. Or like, I think there was one influencer here. She put her iPhone on the table, and she actually managed to hold the table, and the phone was still there. So then people are saying, oh, well, this is Singapore and it's so safe and everything. Well, there's always a thing to remember. Sometimes the safest place is also the most dangerous place. Anyways, if you have questions about Kiasu-ism, or you want to share more about Kiasu-ism, write me a comment, talk to me, share it with me. We can develop further on that, and we can share further about it as well. But this is Y2K here, signing off, wishing all of you healthy and happy. Don't overwork yourselves, just to be number one. Remember that at the end of the day, we all go out the same way. When I say the word go out, people will say, oh, it's a very dark connotation, it's a very dark perspective. Well, we all go into a box, some kind of a box, and then that's the journey to the end. So I would wish all of you happiness and joyfulness. Till the next time, take good care, guys.